Michael Jordan is what in the finals? 6 and what?
Oh.
And what is LeBron in the finals? That's all I got to say.
January 16th, 1993, still your rookie year. You guys are in Chicago playing the Bulls. It's a big moment. These are the defending champs, back-to-back champs.
If it in, puts it up in, out and he's fouled. Mike, quick turnaround and he hit it.
I remember that Mike is killing us, but we're close. When you see the light at the end of the tunnel, you go for it. Damn, I'm about to beat Michael Jordan.
Shaq has finally snapped, and he's not pretending otherwise. He's fed up with what fans allegedly see as LeBron and KD taking subtle digs at Michael Jordan, and now he's calling them out in a way that has the entire basketball world buzzing. His latest comments didn't just shake the conversation, they cracked it open. And the real question people keep repeating is simple. Did Shaq just deliver the final blow in the GOAT debate? The moment he brought up the fear factor, everything changed. According to him, this isn't even a real argument anymore. Because here's the thing, the NBA's never-ending GOAT conversation has never really been about stats or trophies. Forget the highlight reels fans replay 1,000 times. Shaq says the truth comes from the people who actually lived it.
I'm studying him because I want what he has. Studying how the refs treat him. I'm studying how he's talking to his teammates and they respond. I'm studying his relationship with him and Phil Jackson. I'm studying how the opponents look at him and fear him and all that. I definitely want that. He was the best in the game, and I wanted his spot.
The ones who battled these legends in real time, with real pressure and real consequences on the line. And when the person speaking happens to be a 4-time NBA champion, a Hall of Famer, and one of the most overpowering forces the sport has ever seen, you don't roll your eyes. You sit up and listen. You lean in closer because Shaq's not talking like a random analyst trying to go viral. He's speaking as someone who felt the impact of these players on the court. Shaq isn't out here tossing opinions around for attention. This is the same man who went face-to-face with Michael Jordan in 21 total NBA matchups, including high-pressure playoff clashes that shaped both of their careers in ways fans still talk about today. Those weren't casual games. Those were battles. And his numbers during those games weren't soft either.
I'm going to say one thing to you, and Max, I don't know the numbers like you do. Michael Jordan is what in the finals? 6 and what?
Oh.
And what is LeBron in the finals? That's all I got to say.
Shaq.
Averaging 25 points and 14.1 rebounds while going directly at the player, many consider the greatest ever is no small feat. Shaq didn't spend his career watching Jordan from the sidelines. He was challenging him up close, body to body, in the heat of competition. So when Shaq speaks on the Jordan versus LeBron versus KD debate, he doesn't sugarcoat anything. He doesn't soften the edges or try to please everyone. He says what he believes, and if some feathers get ruffled along the way, that's just collateral. He's always been unfiltered, and he's not about to change now. And according to him, the supposed eternal debate between Michael Jordan, LeBron James, and
I did pretty much everything that MJ did when I was a kid. I shot fadeaways before I should have. I wore a leg sleeve on my leg and folded it down so you saw the red part.
For no reason.
I wore black and red shoes with white socks. I wore short shorts so you could see my undershorts underneath. But I did everything Mike did, man. I wanted to be Mike.
Kevin Durant isn't much of a debate at all. In fact, Shaq claims there's one factor, one overlooked element, that settles the whole thing. During a 2024 episode of The Big Podcast, Shaq dropped what many fans now call one of the strongest arguments ever made for Michael Jordan's GOAT status. And surprisingly, it has nothing to do with ring counts, nothing to do with scoring achievements, and nothing to do with finals MVP. Shaq didn't point to numbers, rings, or any of the usual debate material. He went straight for something deeper, something no analytics chart can ever measure. He pointed to fear, the one element that separates legends from icons, and he didn't tiptoe around it either. He said it plainly. I've heard players say, including myself, I feared Mike. I've heard players in your generation say they feared Kobe. I never really heard any players say they feared LeBron. That statement hit the NBA world like a thunderbolt. Let that sink in for a moment. We're talking about Shaquille O'Neal, one of the most physically overwhelming athletes the world has ever seen.
Because I realize that the conversation is going to continue to happen no matter what. And it's great for the game.
A 7'1", 300+ pound powerhouse who bullied entire teams in the paint. Yet even he admits he wasn't just cautious around MJ. He was genuinely afraid of him. Not respectful, not careful, but afraid. That confession carries a different kind of gravity when it comes from someone who spent his entire career overpowering anyone who dared to challenge him. And this isn't coming from a random fan or analyst. This is coming from a man who clashed with Jordan on the court, face to face, in real games where pressure was suffocating and every possession mattered. That's why his words hit harder than any stats you can pull up on a website, because they come from lived experience. Shaq's first major encounter with Jordan is still talked about today. On January 16, 1993, something unforgettable unfolded. Jordan exploded for 64 points and 5 steals.
Before the game, I was terrified, but to relieve pressure of that, I ain't got to guard it, so I'm not worried. Second thing I said, I can't let him dunk on me. That's not gonna happen. So it was a play when he comes baseline, I had to touch him up. It was one I'm not getting dunked on because I'll never live that down from family members, homeboys, barbershops. That'll be a poster forever because Mike was the man at the time. But Mike also taught me something very valuable. So when I go to help him up, he said, don't ever help nobody up. Great foul. Don't do that, I don't need your help. But I'm coming back, don't you worry. Mike is the guy that taught me how to go to the next level.
One of the wildest scoring showcases of his career. But Shaq responded with a beastly performance of his own, dropping 29 points and grabbing 24 rebounds, helping the Magic steal a 128-124 overtime win. It was a window into what young Shaq would eventually become, but it was also a reminder of how intense and intimidating Jordan truly was, even in a loss. But the moment that sealed Shaq's belief in Jordan's unmatched greatness didn't come until decades later. In 2020, when The Last Dance documentary aired, fans got a raw, unfiltered look into Jordan's mentality, the relentless drive, the pressure he placed on himself and teammates, the way he approached every challenge like it was war. And when Shaq watched that documentary, it changed everything for him. On the Dan Patrick Show, Shaq explained that the documentary convinced him that Michael Jordan will always be the GOAT. He emphasized Jordan's perfect 6-0 finals record and the leadership style that pushed his teams to levels nobody else could reach. Shaq wasn't guessing. He was stating what he believed after seeing decades of evidence. And here's where Shaq's argument becomes nearly impossible to counter. Once you start comparing actual achievements, Jordan's resume in certain categories doesn't just stand above LeBron's and Durant's, it surpasses their totals combined. Jordan claimed 10 scoring titles. 10. LeBron and Durant together? LeBron and Durant together only have 5 scoring titles, and Durant has 0 all-defensive first-team selections to his name. That alone already tilts the scales, but the numbers get even more interesting when you look at what today's players actually think. In a 2024 survey of active NBA players, 46% voted Jordan as the GOAT, with LeBron close behind at 42%. On paper, that looks like a tight race, but the deeper you look, the more the gap makes sense. Because here's the part people keep ignoring. The players who watched Jordan live, who witnessed his intensity, his aura, and that intimidating presence, are slowly aging out of the league. Younger players didn't see Jordan slice the Celtics for 63 in the playoffs. They didn't see him hit 6 threes in the first half of an NBA Finals game, shrug at the crowd, and walk back like it was nothing. They only know the legend, not the feeling of being on the court with him. Shaq knows. Shaq remembers. And Shaq refuses to let the world forget what separated Jordan from every player before him and every player who came after him. That reality hits even harder when you realize how Shaq describes his mindset back then. He openly said he studied Jordan the way a student studies a master. That's how serious it was. And this wasn't coming from some role player looking for an edge. This came from Shaquille O'Neal, a future 4-time NBA champion, admitting he watched how referees reacted to Jordan, how teammates lifted their level around him, and how opponents changed the second he stepped on the court. Shaq wanted that same influence, that same respect, and that same presence. Fast forward to 2025, during an appearance on the Straight Game podcast, where Shaq shared another point that stirred up discussions. He said he's frustrated with how the GOAT conversation often jumps straight from Michael Jordan to LeBron James, skipping over Kobe Bryant entirely. Shaq believes Kobe deserves to be mentioned far more often, even if he still thinks the GOAT hierarchy has a very clear order. Because even when Shaq defends Kobe, the man who matched his fire more than anyone, he always circles back to the same conclusion. In Shaq's eyes, Michael Jordan sits alone at the top of the mountain, untouched. Everyone else, LeBron, Kobe, Durant, whoever you want to name, is competing for second place at best. And that brings us to the other side of Shaq's argument, the part that gets downright explosive. If Shaq's praise of Michael Jordan is the positive side of the GOAT debate, then his criticism of Kevin Durant is the side that cuts deep. And Shaq doesn't sugarcoat anything when he talks about Durant's legacy. When Shaq decides to dismantle someone's case for greatness, he doesn't tap the brakes. Shaq doesn't sugarcoat anything, and he definitely isn't worried about bruising anyone's ego. When he talks with force, and Kevin Durant is often at the center of that storm. Durant's resume is undeniably elite. 2 championships, 2 finals MVPs, 1 regular season MVP, and 4 scoring titles. His career averages 27.3 points, 7 rebounds, and 4.4 assists are the kind of numbers most players can only dream of. His near 7-foot height combined with guard-level handles has made him one of the most unguardable scorers the game has ever seen. But according to Shaq, none of that matters in the GOAT debate. And he doesn't dance around that point for even a second. Shaq believes there is one critical distinction separating true all-time leaders from everyone else. And Durant falls on the wrong side of it. In a 2024 interview, Shaq dropped a line that rippled across the entire basketball world. He said, "You have to drive the bus. Kevin Durant is a great player, but he rode the bus." And those 8 words exploded through sports media like a firecracker. Fans couldn't stop repeating it, debating it, defending it, and attacking it. Because in the GOAT conversation, that line might be the toughest shot anyone has ever taken at KD's legacy. And here's the uncomfortable truth Durant supporters hate hearing. When you look at the full context, it's nearly impossible to argue against Shaq's point. That's what makes the quote so damaging. It hits a nerve people struggle to refute. In July 2016, Durant made the move that would forever change how people talk about his career. After being part of a team that lost a 3-1 lead to the Golden State Warriors in the Western Conference Finals, Durant chose to join those exact Warriors, a team that had just broken the regular season win record with 73 victories. A team loaded with confident, established stars, Stephen Curry, Klay Thompson, and Draymond Green, who had already proven they could win a championship without him. So when the Warriors went on to win back-to-back titles in 2017 and 2018, with Durant earning Finals MVP both times, the basketball world split into 2 camps. Many praised his brilliance because his on-court performances were undeniably exceptional, but others questioned the weight of those rings because of the situation he walked into. And in Shaq's eyes, those accomplishments came with a giant invisible asterisk hovering over them. Not because Durant wasn't great, but because he joined a machine that was already running at full power. Shaq's argument is simple. True all-time leaders are the ones who build something from the ground up. They endure adversity, they take the heat, they pull teams through chaos, and they carry franchises toward greatness. Shaq's view is that Durant didn't have to experience that particular burden in Golden State. He didn't have to build the culture, carry the expectations, or fight through the struggles that shape legacy-defining champions. Shaq's stance is brutal, and he doesn't soften it for anyone. In his eyes, Kevin Durant didn't build a champion. He simply joined a super team that was already assembled and already rolling toward greatness. He walked into a finished product and collected hardware, and Shaq refuses to count those achievements the same way he counts the legacies of guys who built their teams from the ground up. Now look at the contrast Shaq draws, because this is where his argument gets explosive. Michael Jordan had to claw his way past the Detroit Pistons' legendary physical defense year after year before he finally broke through. He wasn't a passenger on those Bulls teams. He was the unquestioned leader, the alpha, the centerpiece around which everything revolved. The Bulls weren't giving him anything, he took it. LeBron James? Say what you want about his decision to team up with Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh, but even then, everyone knew LeBron was the best player on those Miami squads. He led those teams in every meaningful way. He carried the pressure, took the criticism, and delivered when it mattered most. And Kobe Bryant? Even during the years he won alongside Shaq in Los Angeles, it was obvious he was rising into the driver's seat of the franchise. Kobe wasn't coasting. He was growing into the force that would eventually take over the entire team and rewrite the Lakers' identity. But Durant? According to Shaq, KD was never the engine of those Warriors championships. Shaq says KD was the 3rd most important player on those teams, behind Curry and even possibly Draymond when it came to leadership and total team impact. KD was a spectacular scorer, but in Shaq's eyes, he was still a passenger on a bus that was running perfectly long before he boarded. In 2025, Shaq doubled down harder than ever. He said the GOAT conversation only has 3 names: Kobe Bryant, LeBron James, and Michael Jordan. Kevin Durant wasn't mentioned anywhere. Not a whisper. And when Shaq explained why, it all came back to the same principle. Greatness isn't just about numbers, it's about leadership, pressure, adversity, and self-made success. And when you understand that criteria, Durant's absence suddenly makes perfect sense. That's the part of Shaq's argument that hits the hardest, because it's not personal, it's structural. There was even a moment on First Take that perfectly captured Shaq's approach. While analysts were busy breaking down advanced numbers, pace-adjusted stats, efficiency ratings, and all the modern analytics, Shaq cut through the entire debate with one simple question that slammed the door shut. What did you accomplish when it mattered most? Jordan, perfect 6-0 in the finals. LeBron, 4 championships, 6 finals losses, but he led every one of those teams. Durant, 2 championships, 1 finals loss, but with a massive invisible asterisk attached to both of his wins. Some fans argue Shaq is being unfair to KD. That context should count, and that Durant still dominated on the biggest stage. Shaq doesn't overlook the fact that LeBron had to face those Durant-led Warriors teams multiple times. He knows those matchups cost LeBron real opportunities to add more championships. But that point only strengthens Shaq's argument, not weakens it. Because in Shaq's mind, Durant made that choice willingly. Durant decided winning quickly mattered more than building slowly, and Shaq views that as the ultimate shortcut, the move that disqualifies KD from sitting on basketball's highest mountaintop. To Shaq, greatness isn't just about collecting trophies, it's about how you collect them. And Shaq believes Durant chose the easiest possible route, not the hardest. That's why he says KD can't stand next to Jordan, LeBron, or Kobe when we talk about true basketball immortality. Even Durant himself has often downplayed comparisons between him, Jordan, and LeBron. He's praised them as unique talents operating in different realms of greatness. And maybe that's KD subtly acknowledging a truth he doesn't say out loud, that his championship path will always be viewed differently than the paths walked by the legends before him. Maybe he's made peace with it, because no matter how impressive his resume is, that 2016 decision will always follow him. Meanwhile, Shaq recently expanded the GOAT conversation in a way that shocked fans everywhere. In 2025, he said Stephen Curry deserves a seat at the GOAT table alongside MJ, LeBron, and Kobe. Not because of pure stats, but because Curry changed basketball itself. That's impact on a different level. And here's the irony that nobody can ignore. Shaq is willing to include Curry, the very player Durant joined, while still excluding Durant from the conversation entirely. That contrast hits hard, because Shaq doesn't bend his rules depending on the name. His criteria stay the same. He respects players who carved their own path, took the hits, reinvented their teams, and climbed the mountain without joining the group already sitting at the summit. By that standard, Shaq says Kevin Durant simply doesn't qualify. KD's greatness is undeniable, but authenticity and leadership are the currencies Shaq values most, and he believes KD never paid the full price. And then comes the twist that seals the argument. The final, most powerful support for Shaq's point doesn't even come from Shaq. It comes from LeBron James himself, the man who is often considered the closest challenger to Jordan in the GOAT. Debate has unintentionally fueled the very narrative that keeps MJ atop the throne. Because if you truly want to understand why the basketball world still leans toward Michael Jordan, even after 2 decades of LeBron's dominance, you don't need advanced stats or complicated comparisons. You just need to look at what LeBron has said over the years. Ever since he entered the league as an 18-year-old phenom, LeBron has openly acknowledged the mountain he's been trying to climb. From the moment LeBron entered the league in 2003 as a prodigy, the comparisons to Michael Jordan were non-stop. The expectations placed on him were unreal. The pressure was overwhelming. And yet LeBron has always made one thing crystal clear. He has never hidden his admiration for the man he was supposedly destined to surpass. Their first meeting happened long before LeBron became a global star. It was in the early 2000s when LeBron was still rising into the spotlight and already considered one of the most anticipated young talents basketball had ever seen. And when he later spoke about that first encounter with Michael Jordan, his reaction wasn't subtle, it was reverent. He said it felt like meeting God for the first time, a line that instantly shook the sports world. Think about that for a second. LeBron James, the man who would go on to become the NBA's all-time leading scorer, a 4-time champion, a 4-time finals MVP, and one of the most accomplished players to ever touch a basketball. Compared meeting Michael Jordan to meeting a deity, not a legend, not an icon, something far beyond that. And in a 2023 interview, LeBron didn't even try to hide how deeply Jordan shaped him. He admitted he didn't just watch MJ, he studied him. He observed every detail, copied every movement, every habit, every piece of style he could. The fadeaway jumper he practiced before he was ready, the folded leg sleeve to reveal the red trim, the black and red shoes with the white socks, the shorter shorts. Everything MJ did, LeBron tried to mirror. This wasn't a competitor sharpening his craft to dethrone the king. This was a devoted student looking at the blueprint of greatness and trying to replicate every line. LeBron wasn't chasing Jordan out of rivalry. He was following him out of admiration so strong it bordered on devotion. And in 2009, LeBron took that respect even further when he publicly suggested that the NBA should retire MJ's number 23 across the entire league. Not just in Chicago, the entire NBA. His reasoning was simple and powerful. If you see 23, you think about Michael Jordan. He wasn't joking. He wasn't exaggerating. He believed MJ's impact was so massive that the number itself belonged to him and him alone. Then came 2012 when LeBron wished Jordan a happy birthday on social media and delivered a message that removed any doubt about where his heart stood. He wrote, "Happy B-Day to the person I idolized and wanted to be just like as a kid playing the game of basketball. Michael Jordan, the GOAT." And there it is, straight from LeBron's mouth in his own words, with his own hashtag, the GOAT. Not a GOAT, not one of the GOATs, not a contender, but the GOAT. Singular and absolute. And the name attached to that title wasn't his. It was Michael Jordan. That's the kind of admission that echoes louder than any debate show ever could. Now sure, LeBron's public stance has shifted over time. After that legendary 2016 Finals comeback against the 73-win Warriors, the greatest regular season team ever, LeBron privately believed that run elevated him to the top. He even said, "That one right there made me the greatest player of all time." That moment changed him, and he wasn't shy about it. But even with that added confidence, LeBron has always kept a respectful distance from declaring himself above Jordan. He never steps over that line completely. In 2020, after winning his 4th championship with the Lakers, LeBron was asked yet again about the GOAT talk. And his answer said everything. "Y'all can do the debates. Y'all can figure that out." That's not the response of someone convinced he's already past Jordan. That's the response of someone who knows the conversation is complicated. And maybe someone who still places Jordan in a category too sacred to claim outright superiority over. Even when LeBron hints at his greatness, he never directly crowns himself above MJ. And that's exactly why Shaq's perspective hits so hard. Because Shaq isn't looking at highlight reels or trophy totals. He's speaking from lived experience. He competed against Jordan 21 times, and Jordan's teams held a 12-9 edge over Shaq across those matchups. That's not theory. That's reality he lived on the court. Shaq remembers the pressure MJ created. He remembers the way players tightened up when Jordan locked in. He remembers how Jordan played mind games, how he controlled momentum, how every mistake felt amplified because Jordan pounced on it instantly. Shaq didn't learn those lessons from watching film. He learned them from facing the force himself. There's even a story Shaq often repeats that shows exactly why Jordan sits so high in his mind. After getting knocked down by a physical foul, Jordan refused any help getting up. He got to his feet alone, kept his expression cold, and said he'd handle it later. He wasn't showing weakness, and he definitely wasn't asking anyone to save him. That icy, competitive attitude burned into the minds of everyone who faced him. That's the fear factor Shaq keeps talking about. That's the difference he insists people refuse to acknowledge. Jordan wasn't just a great player, he was a psychological storm. He got inside your head before the ball was even tipped off. Jordan even targeted Shaq's known weakness, his free throws, because he understood how to flip a tiny flaw into a mental battle. Jordan recognized the pressure points and he exploited them, not out of malice, but because that's who he was, a competitor who never eased up. That psychological warfare, that ability to spot an opponent's weakness and strike at the perfect moment, was the core of Michael Jordan's greatness. He didn't just outplay you physically, he outthought you, outmaneuvered you, and broke your confidence before you even realized it was happening. And nowhere is that clearer than in the 1995 Eastern Conference semifinals, the only playoff series Jordan ever lost after returning from his first retirement. Shaq's Magic won that matchup 4-2, handing Jordan a rare setback. But Jordan's response, absolutely ruthless. The very next year, Jordan and the Bulls came back, and swept Orlando 4-0 on their way to his 4th championship. That's what true greatness looks like. You push Jordan down and he doesn't just get up, he comes back with a force that sweeps you out of the building. Off the court, Shaq has always spoken about Jordan with deep personal respect. He's called MJ his big brother, crediting him for guidance that reached far beyond basketball. Their relationship evolved from fear to respect to something closer to mentorship and brotherhood. And that personal connection is a huge part of why Shaq defends Jordan so fiercely in the GOAT debate. He's not just protecting a resume, he's protecting someone who shaped his journey. So where does all of this leave us now? With Shaq's fear factor argument ringing louder than any stat sheet comparison, with Durant's championships forever tied to his decision to join a 73-win powerhouse, with LeBron himself acknowledging, in his own words, that Jordan was the blueprint he wanted to follow. The debate hasn't ended, but it's been shaped in a way that's nearly impossible to ignore. New generations will always fight for their heroes. Fans will always pull out selective stats to make their case. But when a Hall of Famer like Shaquille O'Neal, someone who lived through the chaos of the Jordan era, who battled him physically, who felt the psychological pressure in real time, who learned from him as a mentor, says that Michael Jordan will always be the greatest, that claim carries weight no chart or metric can cancel out. And what makes Shaq's position even more compelling is the humility he shows inside the debate. Because if anyone had the resume to hype themselves up, it's Shaq. This is a man who won 3 straight Finals MVP awards, tying Jordan for the longest streak in NBA history. This is a man who led the league in field goal percentage 10 different times, a run of paint dominance the league had rarely seen. We're talking about an athlete so overwhelmingly powerful that opposing teams had to invent an entire strategy just to slow him down. The hack-a-Shaq tactic didn't exist before Shaq. It was created because nothing else worked against him. When a player that dominant looks at Jordan and says he's on a level nobody else can reach, that statement becomes impossible to dismiss. Shaq isn't speaking from nostalgia, he's speaking from experience. And that experience is exactly why his voice hits harder than any number on a spreadsheet. And here's the wild part. Despite everything Shaq accomplished, despite the dominance, the awards, the records, Shaq has never aggressively pushed himself into the very top tier of the GOAT pyramid. Fans online often speculate that certain stretches of his career weren't as focused as they could have been, and even Shaq has joked about those moments. Maybe there's some truth there, maybe not, but the key is this. Shaq himself never acts like he belongs above Jordan or LeBron, and that honesty speaks volumes. Because if a player as unstoppable as Shaq refuses to put himself in that exclusive group, yet still excludes Kevin Durant from it, that tells you exactly what Shaq's criteria look like. It's not just about talent, otherwise Durant would be in the conversation instantly. It's not about physical dominance either, because Shaq could have claimed that throne without blinking. For Shaq, greatness is built on something deeper, something that can't be measured in points per game or highlight reels. It's about creating something from scratch, inspiring an entire franchise through your leadership, and taking responsibility for the outcome of every season. It's about being the face, the heartbeat, and the driving force behind a championship run. In Shaq's words, it's about driving the bus, not riding it. Shaq has even suggested a different method for evaluating greatness, a position-based approach where guards are compared to guards and big men to big men. He argues that different roles come with different responsibilities, so direct comparisons across positions can sometimes distort reality. And honestly, it's a fair point. Centers don't run offenses the way guards do, and guards don't anchor the paint the way big men do. But even when Shaq uses that framework, his conclusion never changes. He always circles back to the same name, the same standard, the same measuring stick every single time. Michael Jordan remains the benchmark he uses to define what greatness truly looks like. And that's the part that keeps shaking NBA discussions to this day. Shaq isn't hiding behind analytics, and he's not swayed by modern narratives. He's speaking from decades of experience, personal battles, mentorship, and respect. And no matter how many new stars rise in the league, Shaq's definition of greatness always leads him back to the same place. The generational divide in this debate is impossible to ignore. Younger fans who grew up watching LeBron dominate every corner of the league naturally lean toward him as their GOAT. Others who watch Durant glide across the floor with that effortless scoring ability, argue he belongs at the top too. But those who lived through the Jordan era, the fans, players, and coaches who actually felt that tension, every time number 23 rose up for a game-winning shot, they understand something numbers alone can never communicate. They understand fear. They understand what it meant to face a competitor so relentlessly driven that he didn't just want to beat you, he wanted to break you mentally before the scoreboard even mattered. That's the psychological edge Jordan carried into every arena, every night, every moment. And the people who witnessed it felt it in a way that's impossible to recreate through highlights. Even LeBron himself admitted this back in 2013. He openly said his biggest obstacle was his own fear of failure, contrasting himself with Jordan by saying MJ wasn't perfect. But I think the greatest thing about MJ was that he never was afraid to fail. That line might be the most revealing statement in this entire debate. The man with the resume strong enough to challenge Jordan, acknowledging that MJ had a psychological strength he did not. Shaq sees it, LeBron admits it, and at some point the rest of us have to acknowledge it too. The GOAT debate is fun, dramatic, and perfect for social media battles. But when you listen to the people who actually competed at the highest level, the ones who stood on the court, traded blows, and felt that pressure firsthand, their verdict has never wavered. Michael Jordan stands alone. Thank you for watching this video. Make sure to like, subscribe, share, and drop a comment to tell us what you think. And we'll see you on the next one.